All morning, if need be. I call the member for Ipswich.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise to support the 2018 Queensland State Budget, and what a fabulous budget it is. It's a budget that delivers for all of Queensland. It's proudly and unapologetically a Labor budget, which makes sure no one is left behind or forgotten. Ipswich has the distinction of being the fastest growing city in Queensland, and we're faced with the enormous challenge of ensuring we have the infrastructure and services we need to cope with our rapidly growing population. Health and education are foremost concerns for people in Ipswich. People want a quality education for their children, not overcrowded classrooms, and they want to make sure they get adequate and timely care in hospital, not long wait times or substandard care. With this budget, Ipswich is getting critical infrastructure and services in health and education that is needed to accommodate our growing population.
Order, member. There's too much movement in the chamber, too much audible chat. Just ask members to resume their seats or to move outside. Thank you, member.
We're getting additional classrooms for our schools, frontline health services, expanded hospital facilities, more child safety and family support services, and more domestic violence support services. Education is crucially important for our children in Ipswich, and I'm proud to be a part of a government that's delivering the teachers and infrastructure that Ipswich students deserve. The Palaszczuk government has delivered an education budget that makes sure no state school student in Ipswich is left behind. Ipswich has the highest proportion of young people in South East Queensland, and our schools need to meet the growing needs of our young people so that they can have the best start in life. Since March 2015, the Palaszczuk government has delivered an extra 436 teachers to the Ipswich region. Our teachers in Ipswich do a wonderful job teaching our kids, and I commend their dedication wholeheartedly. In my regular meetings with principals from Ipswich schools, I'm delighted to hear updates on the outstanding achievements of their students and staff. These principals are often not acknowledged for the hard work and numerous hours they put in to achieve great outcomes for their schools and students, and I'd like to take this opportunity now to thank them for what they do every day to help our students achieve the best. I'm proud then to stand with a government that makes sure every state school student in Ipswich has the educational opportunities they need to succeed in whatever field of employment they dream of getting into. As part of the $250 million 2020 Ready investment in Queensland high schools, Bremer State High in Ipswich will receive over $8 million to build 12 additional classrooms to cope with the full complement of students expected in 2 years' time as a result of the introduction of the prep year level 11 years ago. It's also great to see in this budget Ipswich Central State School receiving $350,000 to refurbish their B and C blocks, another $100,000 to demolish 2 of their modular buildings, and an election promise of delivering $50,000 for large fans in the school hall. Blair State School will receive $150,000 to refurbish their Block C, and Ipswich West State School will receive $75,000 to refurbish Block A. And I'm also delighted to announce $56,000 for Ipswich West State School for them to upgrade their junior playground through the Smart School Subsidy Scheme. Deputy Speaker, I'm pleased that this budget provides Bundamba State School with $60,000 to upgrade their multi-purpose courts. Across 13 schools in the Ipswich Electorate, a total of $626,000 will be provided for maintenance projects, and a further $231,000 will be provided for minor works projects. This budget will also allow our libraries to foster a love of reading in our under-5s, with $13,000 going to Ipswich libraries to implement the First 5 Forever Family Literacy Initiative. This education funding puts Ipswich students first. It will allow our schools to provide education infrastructure like classrooms and learning facilities that will help Ipswich students flourish and get the most out of their education. Deputy Speaker, I'm also delighted to announce that this budget will provide $607.1 million to the West Moreton Hospital and Health Service this year, which is a 10% increase of almost $53 million on the previous financial year. This investment is part of a record $18.3 billion for health in Queensland, which guarantees that no matter where you live in Queensland or whatever your financial circumstances, you will be able to access high-quality health care. In this budget, the Palaszczuk government is investing in the expansion of the Ipswich Hospital so that it can meet the needs of our rapidly growing population. The first stage of the Ipswich Hospital's $124.5 million expansion is an exciting development for our city. And in this budget, $3 million has been allocated for the planning and business case for the hospital's expansion. Ipswich people also want guarantees that their public hospital system will be able to help care for them if they unexpectedly fall sick or need emergency medical attention. Deputy Speaker, I want to acknowledge our hard-working doctors and nurses who want to make sure that enough resources are provided for them so they can treat people effectively and ensure no person who needs medical care is left behind. And that's why our government is allocating $17.3 billion in growth funding to meet the growing demands which have been placed on our hospital's emergency department, our elective surgery wait times and our outpatient services. And I commend this budget for providing this growth funding, which will go far to improve the healthcare services for regions in Queensland that are currently experiencing population pressures like Ipswich. Since March 2015, the Palaszczuk government has succeeded in providing an additional 284 nurses and 124 doctors to the Ipswich region. This year, an extra $1.5 million will be provided for community mental health treatment services in the Ipswich region, and $1.15 million will be provided to help our nurse workforce in Ipswich to improve patient safety and health care. Gastrointestinal endoscopy services in Ipswich will also be improved by an additional $300,000 in funding. I'm pleased that this budget makes Queenslanders' health a top priority. By delivering frontline services and critical health infrastructure, the Palaszczuk government will help our public health system meet growing demand. And I'm also pleased to welcome other measures in this budget that will provide critical services that will prevent domestic and family violence and help protect and support domestic violence victims. The Palaszczuk government is getting tough on the perpetrators of domestic violence, and it's making sure that victims can get help when they need it and get access to shelters and support services, which will help them escape violent abuse. Unfortunately, no town in Queensland is free from domestic violence, and in Ipswich we've seen a 10.8% rise in domestic violence orders and a 19% rise in DVO breaches over 2 years from 2015 to 2017. The increase in domestic violence in Ipswich is simply unacceptable and has to stop. I'm proud that our government has launched this year a high-risk team in Ipswich to stop this uptick in domestic violence. This team will be made up of officers from police, health, corrections, housing, child safety and NGOs. Further, this budget will deliver $1.3 million to provide DV services in Ipswich to improve the safety and well-being of victims and their children, and $61,000 to provide support services to vulnerable women in Ipswich to keep them safe and connected to their communities. This is backed by the government's investment of $133 million over 5 years to help victims of domestic violence. This budget allocates 2 domestic violence specialist police officers for Ipswich who will provide education and training to police officers and will help government and non-government agencies better address domestic violence issues. At the same time, I welcome more funding to improving child safety in Ipswich. It's important that our children grow up in nurturing family environments that allow them to develop and thrive to their full potential. But this is not always the case, and so it is great to see that this budget funds supportive measures which go far to protecting our vulnerable children. This budget will allocate just over $9 million to provide out-of-home care placement services to children and young people in Ipswich who are in need of protection. It will further provide $983,000 to child protection support services in Ipswich to support children and families meet their case plan goals. And $8.7 million will go towards support services that work with vulnerable families to help improve parenting skills. For vulnerable children in Ipswich, this funding ensures that they have a real chance of a future that is free from neglect, abuse or violence. I also welcome further investment in our court system in Ipswich. Ipswich will be sharing in $476,000 to upgrade the Queensland Integrated Court Referrals to the more effective CourtLink service. This is part of a $1.7 million investment to fund the delivery of CourtLink across Queensland. CourtLink in Ipswich will deliver funding for 2 case managers and will provide brokerage funding to assist eligible defendants to engage in court processes or to access treatment and support services. As part of Queensland's transport budget, I'm very pleased to see the fulfilment of an election promise to fund the East Ipswich station upgrade, with $50,000 allocated this financial year out of a total of $17.5 million to deliver improved access and facilities at the station. This upgrade is keenly anticipated by East Ipswich residents who rely on public transport, especially those with mobility impairments. We look forward to more funding in future budgets to see this upgrade completed. Ipswich commuters will also be pleased to see that the Palaszczuk government is continuing its $400 million investment in the Ipswich motorway Darra to Rockley upgrade, as well as its investment of $65 million for the Centenary motorway Sumners Road interchange upgrade. As large numbers of people settle into the new Ipswich boom suburbs of Ripley, Deebing Heights and Springfield, it's imperative that we assure residents that funding will be delivered to upgrade our roads to alleviate choking congestion due to rising numbers of motorists travelling from these new suburbs. I'm proud to represent Ipswich, Deputy Speaker, and I'll continue to fight for Ipswich people to get the jobs they need, the educational opportunities they deserve, the health and social services which they have every right to, and the transport infrastructure that helps improve our city's productivity and quality of life. I commend the bill to the House.
Thank you, Member for Ipswich. I call the member for Chatsworth.
I rise tonight in response to the Palaszczuk government's fourth budget